بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to welcome everyone today on our event of Fiqh al-Sawm, rulings and technicalities of fasting. As we know that fasting is amongst the pillars of Islam. It is an obligation. In fact, it is an integral part of a life of a Muslim. And for that very reason, it is necessary for each and every one of us to be aware, to have knowledge, to have the basic knowledge at least, of the rulings of fasting, so that not only spiritually, but also technically, we are fulfilling the obligation properly and appropriately. And for that very reason, to have an understanding and we can understand the fiqh of fasting better, we have this session today of fiqh al-sawm. Alhamdulillah, we also had a session, an event on the spiritual aspect yesterday, conducted by our Sheikh Abdullah. And if you were not able to, I hope you have watched it. And if you are not able to do so, you are unable to attend, then I request and advise you to listen to the recording, and you can watch it on our YouTube channel, Masjid Halton. And also a reminder for everyone to subscribe and not forget to hit the, click the bell icon. Jazakumullahu khairan. Before I get started, what does fiqh al-sawm mean? What does fiqh really mean? Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, he explains fiqh very beautifully. He says, ma'rifatul halali wal haram. What is fiqh? Ma'rifatul halali wal haram. To have the knowledge of what is permissible and what is not permissible. To have the knowledge of things that are permitted in the Sharia, and at the same time to have the knowledge of the things that a person should abstain from. And under that same category, it also comes the knowledge of sunnah, makruh, mubah, and mustahab, right? Things that may not be obligation, but they are preferred in the Sharia. They're highly emphasized in the Sharia. And at the same time, things and actions that may not be haram and that may not be impermissible, but they are also disliked. They are discouraged in the Sharia. That's what basically fiqh means. And what will we be discussing today? What are the matters of what are the rulings, or what will we be discussing today about? That is as-sawm, rulings and technicalities of fasting. Now, before I go on and start the legal and the technical issues and the rulings, the technicalities, first I would like to mention that what will I be covering today? The contents, a fairest. And number one is about sawm, a sawm, the meaning of sawm. What does sawm mean? Islamically, linguistically. What does, number two, Ramadan, what does that mean? Number three, the different terminologies that I will be using in the halaqah, whether it's qada, kafara, or fidya. What do they mean? Number four, different types of fasting. There are different types of fasting in our Sharia, and what are they? And the hukm, and the law of them. Number five, inshallah, we'll discuss about upon whom it is an obligation, upon whom it is necessary and wajib to fast. And number six, uh, who uh, who is exempted from fasting? Or before that, actually, number six, things that are required for a person who is fasting, requirements of fasting. And then who is exempted from fasting? And then also we will discuss on the sunan of fasting, the makruhat of fasting. And then we'll also discuss things that break the fast. And in that category, there's two things: qada only, no kafara, a makeup. And then there's a category which has qada and kafara. We'll also be discussing what kafara means later on. Also, I will briefly discuss sadqatul fitr and Taraweeh also. And then inshallah, at the end, I wanted to mention some issues that are related to adults only, married couples. And also after that, we can have a session of question and answers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq. So the first thing I wanted to discuss is about as-sawm. What does sawm mean? Linguistically, as-sawm means as-sawm, as-siyam. It means al-imsak, أو الكف عن الشيء, to abstain, to refrain from something. That's what sawm linguistically means, لغة. What does as-sawm Islamically mean? الإمساك نهارا عن المفطرات بنية من أهله من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. The definition is written in al-Fiqh al-Islami, وَدِلَّتُهُ, that's where I'm copying this from. So, al-imsaku naharan anil mufattirat, to abstain from things that nullify the fast, to abstain from things, to refrain from things that nullify the fast from dawn, from fajr to sunset, till maghrib, with the intention of fasting from a person who is ahl, who's qualified or who's fit for it, who is able, who is capable to fast, upon whom the fasting is wajib. That's what Islamically fasting means. And the second word that uh, is Ramadan. What does Ramadan mean? Now, Ramadan, if you check in the lugha, it basically means extreme heat, or even something that burns. Now, as it's written that when they were giving the name of this month, it was in the summer months. And due to that very reason, it was summer and it was extreme heat, they named this month Ramadan. There's also a connection if you look with fasting and Ramadan. What is the connection? As I said, Ramadan also comes in the meaning of burning. Just like a fire burns things, in the same manner, Ramadan also burns the sins. And that is the connection between as-sawm and Ramadan, I would say. Now, the third thing we'll move on to is the the terminologies. What are the terminologies of different terminologies that I will be using? The first one is qada. What does qada mean? Qada basically means that if a person in the month of Ramadan, he skips a fast, he misses a fast due to a reason, whatever reason it may be, a valid, legitimate reason, he has to make up for that fast. That is called qada. Then there is kafara. What is kafara? They translate it as fast of expiation. You can understand it as a penalty. When a person breaks his fast intentionally, deliberately, without a valid reason, there is a qada and a kafara as well. There is a penalty for that. What is the penalty? And when there is a kafara, inshallah, we'll talk about it later, inshallah. And then one is fidya. What is fidya? Fidya is a person who is, it's a ransom, you can say. A person who is unable to fast due to health or age, whatever reason it may be, will come on what's the legitimate reasons or excuses you can say for a person not to fast and give fidya. So a person basically, fidya is a ransom that a person gives because he is unable to fast. It is a substitute for fasting. That's what fidya is. And who can give the fidya? How much would he give? We'll come to that, inshallah, later on. Then, number 4, what are the different types of fasting? They're in 4 categories. The first one is wajib. And wajib also is in 4 categories. Number 1, wajib basically necessary and obligation. Fasting in the month of Ramadan. That's called ada. That's wajib. Number 2, qada. If a person missed a fast of the month of Ramadan, then he will have to make up for that. That is also wajib. Number 3, kafarat. A person who broke his fast intentionally, deliberately, without a valid excuse, without a valid reason, there is a kafara for that. And that basically also is wajib now. Also, there's siyam and nadhr. They are also wajib. A person vows that if such and such action or such and such thing happens for him, then he will fast these amount of days, this many amount of days. That is also wajib. Also, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, according to Hanafi school, if a person starts his fast voluntarily, a nafil fast, but then he breaks it during the day, for whatever reason may be, because he started already, that becomes a wajib on him. That's necessary. Now he has to finish that. Now, if he has broken that fast, he will have to make up for that also. The second category is haram. Yes, there are fasts that are haram as well. Now, one of them is to fast on the day of Eid, whether Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha. A person cannot fast on these days. Also, he cannot fast on the days of Ayyam al-Tashriq after the day of Eid, 11th and 12th and 13th of Dhul Hijjah, when he's not allowed to fast. It's haram for him. فإنها أيام أكل وشرب وبعال. Also, a woman who is in her menstrual period or postnatal bleeding, she is also not allowed to fast. In fact, it is haram for her. لا يصح ولا ينعقد. even if she fasts, it won't be counted. Also, a person who fears upon himself that he might harm himself, he might, if he fasts, that will harm him. Then even for that person, it's actually haram to fast. He should not fast. Prevention of preservation of life is more important. Also, then there are fasts that are makruhat. Um, Fasting Sawmud Dahr, fasting every single day of the year, that is also makruh. Singling out a particular day that I will fast only on Fridays or Saturdays, that is also a makruh. Also fasting the in Yawm al-Shak, 1 or 2 days before Ramadan, that is also makruh. Then there are fasts that are tatawa'at, that are mandub, that are uh, or masnoon, even sunnah, recommended. Some of them are highly emphasized, or some of them are even just nafl, voluntary. And we have them from the sunnah of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are many examples, such as Sawm Dawood, right? The fast of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, he would fast 1 day and he would do iftar 1 day, not fast 1 day. That is also a sunnah. And then there is fasting ayyamul bidh, the 13th and 14th and 15th of the lunar calendar. Uh, Also fasting Mondays and Thursdays. Also fasting the 6 days in Shawwal. A person is allowed to fast not on the day of Eid, but after that he can fast them consecutively, continuously, or he can even a person can even spread them. The six fast in the month. Also, then there is fasting the 10th of Ashura, a day before that, 9 and 10th, or day after that. Recommended is 9 and 10th. If one cannot, then 10th and 11th is also permissible. Also, the 9 days, first 9 days of the Hijjah is also recommended to fast. It's a sunnah. In fact, the ninth is Yawm Arafah. A person who's not in Hajj, there's a great reward for that, fasting on the ninth of the Hijjah, and also fasting in the month of Sha'ban and in the month of Muharram. So these are different types of fasts in our Sharia. Some are wajib, some are even one cannot fast, and there are even fasts that are disliked, and there are fasts even that are sunnah. The next discussion is who is obligated to fast in the month of Ramadan? Upon whom is it mandatory to fast in the month of Ramadan? Number one, al-Muslim. Definitely he has to be Muslim. Number two, al-Aqil. That person is uh, um, mentally mentally sound, sane. He's not insane. Number three, al-Baligh. Adult. In Islamically, when we say adult, it basically means that a person who has reached puberty. There are physical signs, and if there are no physical signs, and if they reach the age of 15, then they are automatically now baligh, and they are mukallaf of the Sharia. They're responsible now. Number four, a person who's healthy, as-sihha min al-marad, a person who's physically capable, healthy, physically capable. That's number four. And number five, al-muqim, a person who is a resident. So a person who is a traveler or musafir, it is allowed for him to not fast and make up later on after Ramadan. And also for women with these five conditions at the same time, a woman who is free from her menstrual period and not in her postnatal bleeding, she is supposed to fast. Basically, that means if she is in those ayyam, in these days, then she is not allowed to fast. Now, there are people, if a person has these five conditions in him, he's a Muslim, he's an aqil, he's mature, al-baligh, he's mature, and he is sane, and at the same time he's physically fit, he's healthy, and he is a resident, he has to fast. And for a woman, one extra condition, right? He has to fast. But is there someone, even though they have uh, they're mukallaf, but are there people who are exempted from fasting? Now, there are also into two categories. A person who's exempted from fasting, they are into two categories. Number one, the first category is those people who are exempted from fasting, but later on they will have to do qada. Later on, they will have to make up for it. And number one is, you can say, a traveler. Now, who's considered a traveler? A person who travels, a difference of opinion, 77, 81. The most ahwat is 87 kilometers. A person who's traveling 87 kilometers or more from the boundary of the city, right? Not basically from his house. A person who travels up to 87 kilometers uh, or more from the boundary of the city, that person is considered as a traveler. Now, he is exempted from fasting, but he will have to make it up later on. There's a qada for him. He has to make it up after Ramadan. So, for example, a person uh, he starts his journey in the night or before subh sadiq, before dawn, and he's away for 3 days. Now, he has the permission, he's allowed from the Sharia that he does not fast, and when he returns from his journey, he will start fasting, and the days that he missed, he'll fast after Ramadan. Now, one thing I wanted to mention here is a person who will be traveling later in the day. For example, he's traveling 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the day, but he's a resident in the morning. He's at his house in the morning. Does he start off his day with fasting, or he is allowed not to fast from the beginning of the day? No. So, to keep in mind, when he started his day, he was a muqim, he was a resident. So for him, he has to start his day off with fasting. Now, when he starts his travel, when he passes the boundary of his city, right, and then he cannot bear, it is hard for him, then he is allowed to break that fast. But he will not start his day off without fasting. Number two is al-marid, a person who is sick. A person who's sick, who fears death or deterioration of health, or even to the extent that the recovery of his health might be delayed, right? It might take longer to recover from his sickness. Then that person is also exempted from fasting. But he has to make qada for that after. Once he is healthy, then he has to make up later on. Number three, which is related to woman, a Muslim woman who's pregnant and she fears that she might not be she's not physically fit, then she is allowed to not fast, but she has to make it up later on. She has to count the amount of days that she is missing. Number four, also related to a Muslim woman who is breastfeeding, and she's feeding, she's nurturing her the child, the infant, and she feels that she's not capable, she's not strong enough, she's not physically weak. Then she is also allowed to not fast, but she will have to make it up later on when she is capable to do so. Number five, a woman also who is in her menstrual or postnatal bleeding period, she is not allowed to fast. And remember, when it comes to salah, yes, they do not have to make up for that. So let's say a woman misses 5 days of salah, she does not have to make up for them due to this hayd. But when it comes to siyam, when it comes to fasting, they will have to make up later on. That's the first category. They will have to do qada, they will have to make up. And then the next category is uh, who are exempted. They will basically have to pay fidya. And who are those people that come in this category? A person who is completely not able to fast, whether it's due to old age, he's not able to fast. He's reached in such an age that now it's extremely hard for him to fast. He's reached the age of 60, 70, 80, or whatever, but now he is physically unfit to fast. Then he is allowed to give the fidya. And the second person is a person who has a chronic disease or a lifelong sickness, right? A permanent sickness, or a sickness that is most likely unexpected to be cured from. He is also exempted from fasting, and he will be paying the fidya. Now, what is the fidya, and how much is the fidya? What is the fidya? Fidya is basically feeding a poor person a day's meal. Feeding a needy poor person a day's meal, that means 2 meals. And how much is that basically? It is almost the amount of sadaqatul fitr basically. So for every day, basically, for every day he will be every day that he misses, every single fast that he misses, he will have to pay a fidya for that. So for example, if it's around a day's meal for a needy person, 2 meals basically is, let's say, $7 to $10. So he will be, and he misses the entire month of Ramadan, 30 days, let's say. So he will be paying the fidya, and that is around 210. And if it's $10 to $300, 210 to around $300. That's the amount of fidya that he will be paying. Now, now we move on to the next step, number 7. What are the requirements of fasting? Is there any requirements? Yes, there are. One of the requirements of fasting is an-niyyah, intention. If a person wants to fast in the month of Ramadan, then he has to make an intention after iftar, after maghrib, till before dawn, till before subh sadiq, excuse me. And this is according to the Jamhur. This is according to the majority of the scholars. He has to make his intention every single day for every single fast, basically, from Maghrib till Subh al-Sadiq, before that. Now, this is according to the majority of the scholars. Yes, according to the Hanafi school, if he forgets to make the intention before Subh al-Sadiq, then he is allowed and able to make his intention before the midday, which is called al-Dhahwatul Kubra. Around 10, 11 o'clock, he can make his intention that time as well. Now, what is the intention that a person is supposed to make? Does he have to make his intention verbally? No. There is no intention verbally. He does not have to say anything by his tongue. Intention is basically from the qalb, from the heart. And what is the intention? He has the intention that I am fasting for the obligation for the month of Ramadan. That's the intention. Fasting, the obligation of the month of Ramadan. Now, I also would like to point out over here that if a person wakes up for suhoor, he has suhoor, that is also counted as a niyyah. That will suffice as a niyyah as well. So that is necessary, a requirement to make an intention. That is necessary. This is a requirement. And also there are other components of fasting, which I mentioned in the definition, is that al-imsak an al-mufattirat al-thalatha. Basically, he has to abstain from eating and drinking and so on and so forth. Now, moving on to the Next topic. Are there any sunan? What are the sunnahs of fasting? Yes, there are sunnahs of fasting as well. And there are many sunnahs, in fact, and I'll mention a couple of them actually. One of them is, one of the sunnah of fasting is the suhoor, having suhoor, the pre-dawn, the meal, um, whatever it may be, some dates and water, but having something. Why? تَسَحَّرُوا فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ barakah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says that have suhoor because there is barakah, there is blessings in the suhoor. Number two, to delay the suhoor. To delay, for example, let's say the fajr starts at 4 o'clock. So to delay it until 3, 3:30, whatever he can, right? Not having it early at 1 o'clock. So to delay, definitely, it should not be till the last minute. One should stop before dawn. He has to make sure that he stops before dawn, before the Fajr time starts. Also, number three, be quick in breaking the fast as soon as the sun sets. As soon as Maghrib time starts, you should break your fast. أحب عبادي إلي أعجلهم فطرا. It's a hadith al-Qudsi. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the most beloved servant to me are those that they break their fast as soon as basically time to break their fast. Right? It's basically showing our humbleness and our weakness in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are in need of that meal. So that's, a person should not delay it, but in fact he should break his fast as soon as the Maghrib time comes in. Also, as I already mentioned, to make the niyyah the night before. That is also a sunnah before going to sleep. And there are many other du'as also. Now, is there a du'a, specific du'a for niyyah or for for suhoor? No, there is no specific du'a in the sunnah that a person should say. There is nothing in the sunnah basically. But yes, there are du'as for time of iftar. And I'll mention two of those. One of them is mentioned in Daraqutni. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, basically the narration is, one of the Muslim du'as at time of iftar is that one should recite ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله, that the thirst has been quenched and the veins are moistened and the ajr, the reward, is confirmed inshallah. Another dua which is narrated also in Abu Dawud, and the wording is actually Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftartu. Allah, I fast only and only for you, and I break my fast upon the sustenance and the rizq that you have granted us. Also, one sunnah of, as it comes in the hadith also, that what should a person break his fast on? So, is if a person has rutab, then he should break his fast on rutab. Basically, is fresh dates. If that's available, then he should break his fast on fresh dates. If that's not available, if he does not have them, then ala tamri, dates. And even if he does not have dates, then ala ma'in, then he should break his fast by drinking some water. And there are many other sunnahs as well. Now, there are also actions that are disliked when a person is fasting. They're makruhat. They do not nullify, they do not break the fast. They are not, but actually, you can say they may ruin they may ruin the reward of fasting. They're discouraged. Number one, for example, to taste something unnecessarily. Is the salt proper or not? If it's not necessary, then one should abstain from tasting. Number two, chewing on something unnecessarily. And the reason I'm mentioning unnecessarily is the fuqaha, they mention this because, let's say, for example, if a woman, she has a child and he's unable to chew, and that's necessary, and he cannot chew, so it's permissible for that woman to chew the food for that infant, for that child, so he can eat. But unnecessarily chewing, that's not permissible. right? That's makruh, and that can lead actually, if he swallows or if he eats, that'll break the fast. Also, it's makruh to obscene language, vulgar language, backbiting, basically akhlaq, backbiting, lying, slandering, abstaining from things that are spiritually, that lets a person down. That are spiritually not allowed. Abstaining from those things. Also, if this is gathering the saliva intentionally in the mouth and then swallowing it, intentionally doing that, that's also makruh. And number 5, doing an action which will make a person weak, and due to that reason, he might have to break his fast. That is makruh. You run 10 kilometers. Now you're so tired that you cannot even breathe. You're dehydrated, and now you have to end up breaking your fast. That's makruh. So do not run 10 kilometers, basically not doing something that leads you to break your fast. That's makruh. Number 6, using toothpaste is makruh. Yes. Why? And the reason behind that is a person may end up swallowing it. If he ends up swallowing, then that will break the fast, basically, right? Also, mubalagha, or you can say deeply gargling and pulling water up the nostrils. Now, in Ramadan, when a person is making wudu, just lightly making, madmada, gargling, not making, not deeply gargling, so that the water goes down the throat, and that may end up breaking the fast. And I'll explain what breaks a fast and what does not come later to that. This particular masala. And there are other things which are related to akhlaq also, that a person should abstain from. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. Now, there are things also. What are the things? Number 9, nullifiers. What breaks fasting? Things that break the fast. Mufsidatul Sawm. Now, they are also into 2 categories. Number 1, it breaks the fast, qada. It breaks the fast, and there's qada. A person has to make up for that, but there's no kafara. And then number 2, it breaks the fast, and there is qada and kafara both. So a person has to make up, and there's expiation, basically a penalty as well. The first category is those actions that break the fast. Then there's qada. A person has to make up for that, and there's no kafara. Number 1, vomiting intentionally. Person who vomits intentionally, that will break the fast. A full mouth, he vomits intentionally, that will break the fast. Now, to keep in mind, so if a person vomits naturally, unintentionally, that won't break the fast. Number 3, a person vomits unintentionally. Naturally, he vomits. But now what happens? He intentionally, deliberately swallows that vomit. Gross, yes, but it breaks the fast also. He purposely, on purpose, he swallows it. It'll break the fast. But there's only qada, no kafara. Number 3, smoking. Smoking breaks the fast. There's qada. Intentionally, basically cigarette, that'll break the fast, smoking. But unintentionally inhaling smoke, or that won't break the fast. Unintentionally inhaling smoke, that won't break the fast. Dust, that won't break the fast. Number 4, a nasal medication. Nasal medication, you can say inhaler, nose drops, they break the fast. But again, there is no kafara. There's qada, one person has to make up for that, but there is no kafara. And then there's a masala of eardrops. Does a eardrop, medication in the ear, oil drops, eardrops, does that break the fast or no? So when you look at the mutaqaddimin, when you look at the fuqaha, uh, the jurists of the previous, the salaf, they mention that that breaks the fast. And the reason behind that is because it reaches the manfad, it reaches the brain. Now, the new research, as my teacher, Mufti Salman Sab, he writes in his book also, that the new research is that eardrops or uh, oil drops through the ear, they say that it does not reach the brain, and due to that reason, it will not break the fast. But again, I'm mentioning the mutaqaddimin, they say it will break the fast, but the new research says that it will not break the fast. Also, just since I'm mentioning some masail related to medical and medication, I'll mention a couple of other things also, even though they do not break fast, such as eye drops. They do not break the fast. A person can use them, it does not break the fast. Also, injections into muscle, skin, or bone. Injections into muscle, bone, or skin. That does not break the fast also. In fact, let me tell you an usul. Remember an usul actually. There's an usul which a person should keep in mind, that any food or medication that is delivered or that reaches the stomach, the small intestine, any food or medication that reaches the small intestine, the stomach, or the brain, or it passes the throat even, they'll break the fast. Whether it's taken orally or from the nose or any other way, if it reaches the brain or the stomach or it passes the throat, that will break the fast. Now, if there's any type of other medication or if there's any type of treatment that does not reach, let's say that, as I mentioned, injection, if it's in the bone, it does not reach the stomach or the brain, right? Then that will not break the fast. Another thing to keep in mind here is if a person breaks his fast due to a legitimate reason, a person who breaks his fast due to a legitimate reason, uh, whether it's due to a sickness, a person he breaks his fast due to a legitimate reason, whether it's a sickness or whatever it may be, but it's a valid reason, whether it's travel or sickness, then there is qada. There is qada, but there is no kafara. He'll have to make up, but there is no kafara. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention is, especially according to the Hanafi school, I'm not sure about the other madahib in this particular mas'ala, but again, I remember again, according to the Hanafi Maslak school of thought, that if a person, while making, let's say, wudu, he forgetfully, he does not know he's fasting, and he drinks water, he swallows water, he drinks water, and he does not know, he does not remember he's fasting, that will not break the fast. But a person is making wudu, he's aware that he's fasting, and while making wudu, accidentally, not intentionally even, accidentally, water goes down his throat, that will break the fast also. He will have to make qada for that. Person, he remembers he's fasting. He, he remembers he's fasting, and it was accidental even then. But if a person forgetfully, or he does not remember he was fasting, and he does it unintentionally, it does not remember he's fasting, then definitely there is no qada on that, and he will continue with his fast also. And thus there are other one or two issues that are related to adults, married couples. I'll mention them at the end. Now, the other category which has qada and kafara, other category that has which a person when he uh, does, he has to make up, and there is an expiation, basically a penalty as well. Number one, the first one is consuming food or drinking something of nutritional value, something that is customarily, eaten, something that a person customarily is eaten, like bread or rice, uh, and he eats a nutritional amount, right? That will break the fast, and according to the Hanafi school and the Maliki school, there is kafara as well, qada and kafara. According to the Shafi'i, I'm not sure about the Shafi'i actually, but according to the Hanbali school, there is qada, but there is no kafara. There is qada, but there is no kafara. And another issue that is also related to the adults, I will mention that at the end, inshallah. Which, if a person does, there's qada and kafara as well. Now, basically, what is a kafara? What is kafara? The kafara of fasting is the same as kafaratul dhihar. The kafaratul dhihar is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-Mujadala, in the 28th juz. And the kafara of fasting, it is the same as kafaratul dhihar, but is mentioned in the hadith as Muslim and others also. Now, what is the kafara of siyam? If a person commits that act, I mentioned he intentionally eats or drinks, or another issue that is related to the adults also, if he breaks his fast intentionally, if he commits that act intentionally, deliberately, then number one, he has to either, as it comes in the Quran, the first is tahrir raqaba, freeing a slave. That does not apply to us now. So we move on, and this is in sequence. So now we move on to the next step. The next step is فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, then he has to fast for consecutively, he has to fast consecutive 60 days of the lunar month. So keep in mind that if a day of Eid is coming, or Yom Tashriq is coming, then he'll have to start all over. So he should start at a time when these days in which a person is not allowed to fast are not coming. And it has to be consecutively, without missing any day, 60 days. But for women, one should remember that if they end up coming into their, if they into their menstrual period or postnatal bleeding happens, let's say after 30 days or whatever, or 20 days or whatever, then after those days pass, they can continue on from where they left off. Now, if a person is not able to do that also, if he's not able to fast 60 days consecutively, due to a health reason, not just any reason, due to a valid reason, legitimate reason, he's not able to fast, he's not healthy, he's sick, then comes the next step is, if he cannot do so, it's not preference. I'm saying it again. It's in sequence. If he's not able to do so, then comes the next step. It's not he has a choice to do whatever he wants. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, if he's not able to do so, then due to a valid reason, then he has to feed 60 poor people a day's meal. 2 meals, basically, per day, right? To 60 masakin. A day's meal to 60 masakin. Or he can even do this, feed one miskin, a poor person, for 60 days, a day's meal. That is also allowed at the same time. Now, how much is that? What is the, if he wants to give the amount, then basically that would be around, if he wants to give money, let's say it's $7 or to $10 a meal per day, and he has missed 2 months. And he has to pay for 60 days now. So that will be basically, if so that will be, if for $10 we count, that will be $600 that he'll be paying, basically, in the kafara. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is sadaqatul fitr. Now, what is sadaqatul fitr basically, and why, and upon whom is it wajib? Sadaqatul fitr is wajib on a person whom on a person whom zakat is wajib, right? And also on that person, even though zakat may not be wajib upon him, but even on that person who is or who has the amount, who owns the amount of nisab on the day of Eid, even though a year has not passed, right? He has to also pay sadaqatul fitr. Let me repeat that again. In zakat, hawlanul hawl, a year has to pass. That is a condition. Yes, right? Throughout the year, he was sahibul nisab. He was uh, he was owning a nisab basically. He had that much amount in which he had to pay zakat. But when it comes to sadaqatul fitr, a person on the day of Eid, if he has that much amount of money, which makes that person a sahibul nisab, then he has to pay sadaqatul fitr as well. Now, when should a person pay sadaqatul fitr? He should pay that in at least the couple of days, 3 days, 5 days before Ramadan ends, so that it reaches the masakin, it reaches the fuqara, it reaches the needy people. And the reason behind the sadaqatul fitr, right? The two reasons that are mentioned in the hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that it's actually tuhratan lis-sa'im min al-laghwi wal-rafath, that it is a purification of the mistakes that we probably had made during fasting. And also number two, وَتُعْمَةً لِلْمَسَاكِينَ, and so that the needy and the poor, they can also enjoy a better Eid. The sahibun nisab, if you look at today's rate of gold and silver, a person who is malik, who is a sahibun nisab, basically is a person who has 87.48 grams of gold, or wealth, or money, a possession that has reached to that amount, which is around $7,495 of today's rate, or he has the nisab has reached the nisab of silver, which is today's rate. You can say he has possession of $464, and there's difference of opinion, but we won't go to the detail of that right now. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is Taraweeh. Now, what is the ruling of Taraweeh? Is it fard? Is it wajib? Is it sunnah? The answer to that is, according to A'immatul Arba'a, according to the majority of the A'imma, it is a highly emphasized sunnah. It's a sunnah muakkada. It's a highly emphasized sunnah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he performed it, and Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, they also performed it. Yes. Now, so basically what that means is a person who intentionally misses Taraweeh, right? That can lead a person who intentionally avoids Taraweeh. That can lead to a person committing a sin or being accountable, because it's a sunnah mu'akkada, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. So let's not be negligent and think it's not fard or it's not wajib. And let's give importance to Taraweeh as well, just like we give importance to our fasting. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, "Man sama Ramadan iman muhtisaban, ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi." Right? That a person who fasts in the month of Ramadan with iman, with faith, and iman wahtisaban, with the anticipation of reward, his sins are forgiven. And he says the same thing about qiyam, about Taraweeh. Man qama Ramadan iman and wahtisab. So let's give importance to it, and let's not be negligent and avoid and think that it's not fard and wajib. Now, the next thing when it comes to Taraweeh is, how many rak'ahs do I perform? Right? Now, to remember, according to the madahib al-arba', according to the a'imma arba', right, it is 20 rak'ahs. Now, yes, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, he has the opinion of 36, but if you go into detail and look, do a reading of it, it's actually 20 rak'ahs in congregation, and 16 rakahs were individually, which were performed 4 rakahs after every tarweeh that happens after the 4 rakahs. The people of Mecca, they would do after 4 rakahs tawaf of the Kaaba, and the people of Medina, they would perform 4 rakahs extra. And that's how it become 36. Nevertheless, now yes, there is an opinion of scholars who say that it's 8 rak'ah plus the witr 11 rak'ahs, and we respect that. Yes. Now, if what is my recommendation? What is my advice? My advice and the opinion that I follow is the opinion of the majority of the ummah, the majority of the scholars, is that 20 rak'ahs. Yes, that is what I follow. But again, I advise everyone that if a person he is not able to perform 20 rak'ahs, let's not look at, I'll follow the opinion of 8, I'll just perform 8. Let's try to perform whatever we can, whether it's 20, 16, 12, 8, whatever we can. Let's try it with, khushu' and khudu, and try our best, whatever we can do, and do something, right? Now, the next mas'ala I wanted to mention over here is that, people have this question that now, due to the circumstances and the situation we really are in right now, and it's hard. The masajid are closed, and we're not having a Taraweeh in Jama'ah, in a congregation. Now, while I perform my Taraweeh at home, while personally, individually, alone, or in a congregation with my family, how should I perform my Taraweeh? Am I allowed to recite from the Mus'haf or not? That's a very common question. It's a valid question, yes. Now, yes, there is differences of opinion in that. So no doubt there is differences of opinion in that. Now, some allow, and some scholars do not allow. They do not allow. According to the Hanafi school, according to Imam Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, in fact, the salah will be invalid. And according to Imam Muhammad and Imam Yusuf rahmatullahi alayhi, it's makruh. Yes. But that's not the point I want to mention over here. Yes, there's differences of opinion. My recommendation is that instead of reciting from the Mus'haf, recite from your memory, whatever surahs you know. Whatever surahs you know. Whether you know 10 surahs, 20 surahs, the Juz Amma, recite from your memory. And on a daily basis, memorize more. Try memorizing more. And recite that with your memory. Right? That's the first recommendation. Now, number 2, yes, I do know. I know. Then the message I'm giving to my community in Burlington, I know, I'm aware that there are brothers who follow their opinion as well. Even to them, my recommendation is, if they want to recite from the Mus'haf, I recommend them that do not hold it in your hands. I recommend them that have a stand, have something higher, put the Mus'haf there, recite from there, have the 2 pages open, recite 1 page in one rak'ah and the other page in the other rak'ah, and avoid amal kathir, avoid doing things that are excessively, that are unnecessarily, that are not necessary, and that is not considered to be part of salah. Avoid from things that ruins the humble, the quality and the khushu' and khudu of the salah. So a person who does this act, who wants to do it, and he prefers that he wants to recite from Mus'haf, khair, but try not to hold in your hands. Put it up on a higher place and recite from that. And that's the highest I would recommend if a person wants to recite from the Mus'haf. Then comes the discussion of, am I allowed? Should I recite from a phone or not? Absolutely no. I recommend that. No, absolutely no. And the reason behind that is, a person ends up doing things that are unnecessary in salah, and that totally ruins the khushu'. A person might say and argue that if I put my phone in flight mode, the phone locks, switching the phone on, turning the screen, and holding it, and then in ruku and sujood, it actually ruins the salah in itself, and there is too much action that takes in place. So from the phone, absolutely no, I do not recommend that. Now, after mentioning this mas'ala, there's something I really wanted to mention here. And the other day I was listening to one of the scholars, and that really touched my heart. And I really wanted to mention this, is that because of the situation that we are in right now, and the masajid are closed, and due to the circumstances, we have to perform our we're not able to have a big jama'ah in the masjid of Taraweeh and so on and so forth, and we have to do it individually or with our family. Does that make us think of something? Did we realize something or not? Ponder that, Alhamdulillah, I'm preparing myself for Ramadan. I have stocked everything that I need. My freezer is stocked. I have my groceries, they're full, everything's stocked in the fridge. The toilet papers, they're stocked. Everything is stocked. I stood in line. You can, people say they had to stand in line for an hour, or even some might even are more than that, right? And we stocked everything. I'm ready. How much of the Quran have I stocked in my heart? How much of the Quran have I stocked in my heart? It's a wake-up call for us. I've passed 40 years of my life, 50 years, 60 years. I'm in my old age, in my last years maybe. Allah knows best when I will pass away now. How much of the Quran have I memorized? How much have I stocked of the Quran? No, I have to worry that how will I perform my Taraweeh now? How am I going to perform my Taraweeh? Something to really ponder on. So that's why my recommendation is recite from the memory and memorize whatever we can, memorize something on a daily basis, right? So that when we pass away, when we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have something in our heart of the Quran, right? Many complain that their tajweed is not even good, right? How am I going to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this type of tajweed? I've mastered everything. I've done PhD in many things, but I do not even know properly how to recite the Quran. And I have to do classes, and I'm saying this from my heart. From the entire community, barely 5 to 10 people I have coming. And so there are scholars out there, they're ready to teach you. They want to teach you so that you can fix your Quran, right? We have no interest. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq. Now, the last, one of the other things I wanted to mention related to this is many people have this question of doing Jum'ah or performing Taraweeh virtually, right? Is it permissible or not? For example, there's Salah, there's in Mecca and Medina, the Taraweeh is going on. Can I follow that or not? And just to keep in mind, this is not something, this is not a question that is something new. Due to the situation and circumstance, it's not something that has, it's the first time the Ummah had to ponder upon this question. It's from actually the 1980s when, when Haramain, they started broadcasting the Taraweeh prayers. People asked this question, and none of the Majma', none of the councils of fiqh, they approved it. And keep in mind, one of the reasons, I don't want to go in details about this anyways, but just to keep in mind, there are many conditions and shara'it that are related in order for iqtida, following an imam, there are conditions, and that need to be fulfilled. And there are many of them. And one of them that is not fulfilled over here, and I can, if someone wants to read in detail, they can read Al-Fiqh al-Islami wa Adillatuhu, volume number 2, page number 1247, and in which he mentions of Salatul Ittihadu Makan Salatul Imam al-Muqtadi. They have to be either haqiqatan or hukman, either in one room, in reality, or technically considered to be one room. And in detail you can read, and this is the problem over here, that the imam and the follower is not in one place, and due to that reason the iqtida is not valid. Now, I would like, I mentioned that there are a couple of things I wanted to mention at the end that are only and only related to the adults. So, number one, when a person has with a spouse, any physical intimacy with spouse, whether it's kissing, or whatever it may be. And I have to be clear when it comes to the Masail of Deen, when it comes to fiqh. That's why I'm mentioning at the end, for this very reason also. So when there is physical intimacy, uh, kissing a spouse or whatever it may be, but there is no ejaculation, right? It's allowed as long as it does not, as long as a person has control over him, right? And if he doesn't, then that's makruh for him. That's dislike for him. So what that means is a physical intimacy which leads to ejaculation, a physical intimacy that leads to ejaculation, that will break the fast. That will break the fast. Yes, you'll have to make up for it, but there's no there's qada, but no kafara. Now, one of the other masala I want to mention, I know according to the fiqh al-Hanafi, I'm not sure according to the other schools of thought, uh, but if a person kisses one's spouse and there's saliva and he swallows the saliva of the other person, of the spouse, his or her, that will break the fast according to the Hanafi school, which I am aware of. Yes, but there's qada on that, but there's no kafara. Now, number 4, this one relates to the adults. This There's qada and kafara both. Sexual intercourse, either side. Sexual intercourse, either side, whether there is ejaculation or no ejaculation, there is qada and kafara. A person has to make up for that, and there is kafara and expiation. Basically, there is a penalty as well. And I mentioned already what the kafara is. And it's almost time for Maghrib. I have a couple of minutes. If there's any questions, maybe if we can answer them, inshallah. I can see the chat box if there's any questions here, inshallah. There's a question in the Hanafi fiqh. It says the steam break fast. So again, if there is anything that's going down the throat, then definitely it would break the fast. Uh, there's a question: if you have a permanent sickness and you do not have enough to pay fidya, what do you do? Oh, just mashallah, very good question. I forgot that point actually. So if you have a permanent sickness, then that person has to pay a fidya. That's step number 1. But if he is unable to pay the fidya, if he does not have the means to pay the fidya, then inshallah he will be excused. Allah subhanahu so he's excused, inshallah. He does not have to pay anything if he does not have the means. Inshallah, we'll close off with that if there's no other questions.